welcome back to the Living Grounded podcast. The last time I introduced a podcast last week, I was in Panama. It was about 85 degrees and it was sunny. Back in Pittsburgh today, it is sunny, but it's about 25 degrees. So about 60 degrees difference, but we're not complaining because the sun is shining. Thanks so much for your response to Olivia Sperber podcast last week. A young woman, God is working in her life in amazing ways. And it was a great conversation, and you responded so well to that conversation. We really appreciate you engaging with us. So I have a question to start today's introduction to our conversation. What happens when your faith is tested in the most vulnerable place? Your family, your child. Today is a deeply moving episode as we sit down with Kaitlyn and Matt to hear their story about their daughter, Monroe, who was born with some serious life-threatening health issues. From a devastating diagnosis to uncertain outcomes, Kaitlyn and Matt open up about their faith that God would intervene. They were sure that God would intervene and how God met them at every step of the journey. They share how God provided emotionally and spiritually and practically through a community and through a lot of people praying and through moments they can only describe as God's intervention, miraculous. This conversation doesn't shy away from pain, but it also celebrates the victories, especially the miracle of Monroe's life and the faith that carried this family through and continues to carry them through. If you've ever wrestled with unanswered prayer, or you clung to hope in the middle of suffering, or you wondered where is God in a very hard season of your life, this episode will ground you in truth and honesty and grace. And stay tuned after our conversation for an update on Monroe. So here we go, my conversation with Kaitlyn and Matt. Well, Kaitlyn and Matt, thanks so much for joining us today. We really, really appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
And so cool, Kaitlyn. You and my daughter, oldest daughter, are around the same age, played soccer together, and your dad was the travel coach. He was a great coach.
Yes, all the girls knew my dad.
That's great. So you guys have 3 kids. You have Mason,
Yes.
Yep.
7-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
So
First grade.
first grader. How's that going?
She just started at PV this year since we moved. So started a new school and
Okay.
she's loving it.
PV is a great school. 4-year-old son, Carter.
Yes.
Yep.
So he keeps things busy.
Yeah. And he goes to
does.
school at Tender Shepherd.
Okay, very cool. And then Monroe, who's getting close to 2 years.
She'll be 2 in February.
2 in February. And we want to tell her story today. Quite an amazing story with Monroe. So you guys, first 2 kids, you have normal. Every pregnancy is a miracle, right? So
Yes.
there's really no normal. It's all a miracle. And then with Monroe, you learned of some significant health issues early on. Around 20 weeks, I think there was an ultrasound.
Yes.
And they said, we see some things. Kind of go through what you were thinking. I mean, that's for a parent. That's like that's a stopper, right? What were you thinking and feeling as when you heard those words? We see some things we're kind of concerned about.
Yeah, with Mason, actually, we had to do a repeat ultrasound at the first one because she was measuring a little bit small. And so they sent us to the high-risk doctors. So we sort of had been a little bit on that first initial path. So it was like, okay, we're just going to get some extra tests done or an extra look or whatever. And so it was kind of like, this isn't a big deal. Sometimes they're wrong about things. And, with Mason, they were like, you're good to go. We like her growth. You don't need to keep coming back. So it was just sort of felt like that initially. Mm-hmm. And then it was until after that when they started kind of almost reconfirming things they thought they saw was when it started to feel a little bit different. They started throwing out some sort of potential diagnosis that she may not actually be born alive. Or if she was born alive, she was not going to live very long. So some of those things you're like, okay, We went through the first 2 normal miracle pregnancies, but nothing like this.
Mm-hmm.
So quite honestly, we were in the hospital after the first, they had us meeting with genetics doctors, high-risk doctors, and they threw out this potential diagnosis. It's called triploidy, and it really means that you're born with 3 sets of chromosomes, and it's fatal. So we had to get testing for that and then basically wait for a little bit. It's not a quick turnaround for that type of test.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, we called some of our really close friends that are very, how would you put Chris and Diane? They're just very, their faith is very strong.
They've been kind of like spiritual mentors for us as we've been going through a journey. And it's funny because I had a conversation with them really a few months ago, and I was like, you guys were preparing us for this, and I didn't even know it. Because there were certain things that just as parents we had questions about, and they were referring books to us, Gary Cassie and, all of these different books that really started introducing new things into us about how to fight battles. When we weren't even really in one at that time. So it was cool. Yeah. I mean, we went to the waiting room and we called each of them, and we were just like, what do we do?
Yeah. They themselves had walked through some challenges with pregnancies and children and stuff, not our exact scenario, but having to deal with doctors and doctors telling us things that maybe we didn't fully believe were true. And so the best advice, honestly, that personally Diane gave to me was, number 1, be careful who you tell. Like, be very mindful of who you share this information with, because it will affect how you maybe feel about the situation, because people can start, maybe putting potential negative thoughts or wanting to be realistic about the situation and, almost seem delusional that you're not accepting the information from the doctors. And she said, 1, be careful who you tell, that maybe just don't believe the way you do about this situation. 2, the doctors are just giving you information. They may be right, they may be wrong, but it's honestly just information right now. So never confirm and agree with it, because subconsciously you may start to believe the things that they are telling you. They're wrong all the time. Miracles happen all the time. And honestly, every time we went for an appointment, the information would change. They'd say, well, we thought we saw this last time, but we kind of don't see this, but we're seeing this now. And so no appointment was the same. It was always changing. The information was always changing. So she said, never almost affirm that. And then the third thing was, you just can't see this as an inconvenience. I know you have 2 other kids at home, and you might have to go to a lot of appointments. We added it up. I went to over 60 appointments while I was pregnant.
Yeah, 2 or 3 times a week driving from...
And I went to McGee because everything was with the high-risk doctors. So I had to have childcare for the 2.
We got smart and we started stacking appointments. We were like, well, if we're going to be down there, can we do all 3 in one day and just make a day out of it?
But there were 2 specifically that I had to get during the week, but they could not be scheduled in the same day. They had to be at least 2 days apart. Okay. So I always had to be there at minimum 2 times a week.
So I want to go back to what you were saying. Your friends gave you some great advice, and then you guys had to apply it.
Yes.
You were very intentional about who you told. So let's talk about that. There are people listening, and they're going through some challenging times. They've got a challenging time with a child. Maybe they're in the same place that you guys were, where a baby's not born yet, and they're getting some news that there's some concerns. Maybe it's an older child with some challenges, and they're just diagnosing some things. And I think our first response is, we want everybody praying about this, right? So we're going to tell everybody, and that's not always the right thing to do. So kind of walk through. I think it's great advice that Chris and Diane gave you. So kind of walk through your process of maybe, who to tell and who not to tell. And at this point, you're not worried about hurting feelings, because you got to do this. Your plates are full with the things ahead of you. So kind of talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, and I mean, I think even just to frame it, is we saw this as a fight for our child's life. Plain and simple, that's what we saw it as. And so we took it very seriously. And we know that it just takes the faith of a mustard seed to move a mountain. We didn't want to let a mustard seed of doubt creep in there either. We wanted to just go forward every day knowing what the result was going to be. Especially, Kate talked about how many appointments we had. Every appointment, they were telling us everything that they thought was wrong with our baby. So we didn't want anyone else telling us the same thing. We wanted to just look at them and say, thank you for the information and leave, but know what was going on with our baby. And so anyone that we knew, that we told all of the details, every single detail, we wanted them to know what our promises were. We wanted them to know what God can do, because that's what we wanted them to speak over the situation. We didn't want, I remember even at work, people, talking about having these weird symptoms, and what's everyone do? Go on WebMD. And at WebMD, you look for something, and it could either mean you have the sniffles or you're going to die tomorrow. It's that whole gambit. And we didn't want any of that being spoken into the situation because we were in a fight for our baby's life. So we wanted to speak nothing but life over her.
Our small group was like very intentional. They would specifically say, okay, so this appointment, what are we specifically praying for? Like it wasn't just oh, well, we hope your baby's great and fine and whole and makes it. It was very intentional prayer and guiding us kind of in that right direction. Honestly, after I had that first phone call with Diane and she shared even more information about the situation she had gone through. I knew bits and pieces of it, but I did not know all the details. And when she shared all of that stuff and kind of how she got through it, and we had a conversation on the way home from the hospital about, this can't be an inconvenience. I have to see it as, we're seeing our baby a lot more than most people get to see them during pregnancy. And, once you make up your mind that this is how we're going to go about it, I had this just giant wave of peace. Honestly, the rest of the pregnancy, I think for the most part, he could say the same thing. I just know personally for me, I just didn't think about it anymore. I knew God had everything under control and he was going to do what he could do. And I was to control what I could control. And I felt really good about it going through the rest of it. And yes, it was still a daily thing. I, can't watch a show where something's going on with a kid. Can't see anything in social media. Someone else's child is in the hospital. Documentaries, anything like that. People may be talking, behind, you just kind of start to tune it out. I had to find ways. I think you did the same thing. We made a playlist on our Spotify and intentionally had to put songs in there. So if our mind did even slightly drift, immediately had to stick something on positive or
Warrior Baby playlist. Is that what you called it?
It's called Our Warrior Baby.
Our Warrior Baby. Okay. And there was one song in there I think that you said really moved you to this day.
Yeah, Praise is one that I still cry. There was one on in church the other day, and I was crying about it too. It's a song, The Blessing. That one hits home. I mean, even still when I drive Monroe to the hospital sometimes for like checkups or maybe a procedure, I still get like choked up. He sent me something today. It was kind of all about like a parent that has to go through almost like this medical challenge with their child. You do pick up PTSD. I mean, things that remind you of that experience, like it still makes me shake or cry or tear up at times when I take her in or it reminds me of something. And when she sleeps, she has to have she's attached to a pulse ox. So it measures her oxygen and all that stuff because she is on supplemental oxygen.
Okay.
And she has been since she was 3 months old. She had a victory in September. She came off for 9 days. That was the first time in just shy of 17 months.
That's great.
Yeah. I think, well, maybe and even just giving some background too, because I don't think we even specifically said it, but to frame what the battle was, is like specifics about what we were told by the doctors, because we had this whole laundry list. She had talked about triploidy. So they originally talked about that. She wasn't positive for that, but she was measuring 5 weeks small. They couldn't image all of her organs, so they didn't think all of her organs were forming.
They sent me for an MRI at one point. I had to go to Children's for an MRI to try and get a better view of her, and they still couldn't confirm.
She had multiple holes in her heart, only one lung. They said that if she was born, she might possibly not make it. Well, we had to be induced at 37 weeks because they said anything beyond that would increase the risk of stillbirth. And they said that, when she's born, she might have to have open heart surgery to save her life. And then Kate said before, but even they weren't expecting her to live past 1. And so I'll give the doctors credit. They asked us only once if we wanted to terminate, and we said absolutely not, absolutely not. And I don't remember them ever asking ever again, which I really appreciated.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, those were, and I'm probably leaving some stuff out too. I don't know.
Let's say the gist of it. I think there was some potential digestive things. They weren't sure that she had a spleen, which definitely would have affected her immunity.
They were thinking some of her organs were in the wrong place. Because she also had, because her lung, she only had one lung, her heart was kind of twisted too. And so, but these were all the things that all of those 60 appointments from November to, she was born in February. From November to February, 60 appointments. They were telling us that every single time that we were at that appointment. So that was just kind of like framing the battle that we were fighting.
So we want to get to Monroe's birth here in a minute. But I want to go back because I think this is just so important. You guys had great counsel, mentors who helped you kind of keep everything focused straight and have the right people to walk along the journey with you. So often when someone's going through a challenging time, people who love them and care for them just don't know what to say. It's always kind of heartbreaking when someone learns they have cancer or whatever, and they'll say, people don't talk to me anymore, or they ask me how I'm doing, and I say, well, I just went through some rounds of chemo. I'm now not doing real well, right? So, or someone loses a loved one. So, some coaching tips. People out there who say, I got a really good friend going through a challenging time. We'll just leave it at that, challenging time. Get some coaching tips. How can they encourage that person? How can they interact with that person? How can they let the person know they're praying for them? I think that your small group did a great job saying we want to pray specifically for these things. Just some tips on how they can help this couple or individual going through some challenging times without being afraid they're going to say something that upsets them or whatever. I think that's the other thing. Like we won't talk about it because that'll upset them. It's like but I need to talk about that, right? That's Monroe. That's my daughter. I want to talk about her. So coaching tips for those who are kind of on the outside looking in.
Part of that is dependent on the individual. I know specifically for me, I like the time. It's more of people being there physically than, a lot of people say canned phrases of, we'll be praying for you, thoughts and prayers, my sympathies, all that stuff. When you're going through it, that doesn't mean a lot. But saying, hey, you want to grab lunch and just hanging out, and because sometimes when you're going through struggle and you're by yourself in your own thoughts, that's the hardest part. So getting out of that and having some normalcy outside of the chaos is sometimes the best medicine. Even just like taking care of little things. Like we had a great group of friends that, would cook us meals. And when you're going through craziness like that, I mean, we would feed our kids and then forget to eat ourselves. Kate mentioned before we hopped on here is her parents, they live pretty close by. When they were around, they were huge in helping take care of the other two kids. Because there were a lot of times that we were in the hospital together. And we didn't want our kids to be there. So it's like stepping in and doing some of those things, I think, helps. And then what Kate had mentioned before that Chris and Diane did for us is specific prayer. If you trust those people with those details and to pray over those specific things, we, through this process, we're wholly convinced in the absolute power of prayer. And being able to pray specifically over those situations, I think, is immeasurable in the impact.
Kaitlyn, are you going to
Yeah, just one thing I was thinking of, because it was something I think almost would sort of eat at me. Like, I know a lot of it came after Monroe was born because we didn't share a lot before she was born of what was going on. So no one really thought anything was wrong. So our kind of story and need of help or support kind of came after she was here. But for me, a lot of people would say, well, just let me know if I can help. What does that mean? I don't know what that means, because then you're almost putting that burden on me to share with you what help that is supposed to be. Honestly, I do have to feed my kids at some point. So you could just drop off a meal or, just in the general sense, like, someone could stop over and like throw a little laundry in, or, it's like we weren't home a lot. So we were living out of our bags. My parents were helping the best they could with the two older kids, and they did a phenomenal job because, quite honestly, we did not have to deal with anything with our two older ones. Still to this day. And I know part of it's on us, and I know part of it's on my parents too for how much time they had to spend with them. But there were no tantrums. There were no just out of nowhere these big feelings and all this stuff because mommy and daddy weren't around a lot. And this baby that, you've been talking about, it's been growing in mommy's belly, is not around, and, what's going on. And we're not allowed to go to the hospital to see this, our sister. Never once. And they still don't. Because we have had to push off a lot of things because of her. Or up until this point, I guess maybe we've used the excuse that we cannot do it because of her. And they have never thrown it back in our face. They've never complained. They've never come back and said, oh, can't ever do anything because of Monroe. They just don't. I love that because hopefully that's a testament to what we've done with our kids, that they've just never felt like, they didn't have a place to, that it's all about Monroe. But yeah, as far as for people, I would say, even just someone that may need to encourage someone, I think it's just do it. Just drop the meal. Just go and clean up the house a little bit. Or, if they're older kids and they have activities, offer to take the kids to the activities. Just offer the specific help, not the general sense of the word.
Go through all these things, ultrasounds, constantly, things are changing. And then Monroe is born, and that's got to be fairly traumatic. I think you guys said like 15 medical professionals are in there.
Yeah.
And you get to hold her for like a second.
I held her, he didn't.
And then she's gone. Yeah. She's off to ICU. Talk a little bit about that. That had to be a great blessing, right? She's here. She's alive. And you get to hold her for just a second, and then she's off with the medical under their care, right? Kind of, you've already surrendered her to the Lord, and now you're kind of giving her over to them to do their thing. Talk about that experience.
She was born, and as normal, they let Kate hold her for, a couple seconds, and I got to see her there.
Said she was breathing fine, and
yeah, and she was 3 pounds
9 ounces.
3 pounds 9 ounces, so she was tiny, and they basically took her to go get her cleaned up, checked out, all of that stuff. Took her to the nursery. And then I requested to see her because I wanted to be able to hold her too. And they said, okay, well, we'll go and see about bringing her up. And then they brought her up and she was in a box. And so the first time I got to touch her was through the holes in the box with those gloves and full masks on, all of that stuff. And they said she stopped breathing twice, so we got to take her to Children's So they're like, Dad, you can follow the ambulance if you want. And she probably would have too, but they wouldn't let her.
This is right after she was born.
Right after.
They took her 4 hours after she was born. She just had this battery of just
For 12 hours.
For
12 hours
hours.
straight.
People in the room.
Every test you can imagine. But that's when I started to see the work coming to fruition, because they were doing all these tests, and they were like, so you know how we said that we couldn't image all of her organs and we didn't know they were in the right place? They're all there. She does only have one lung, but it's weird because it looks like it just wasn't in her design. Because most of the time, if there's one lung or an undersized lung, has all of the, proper attachments and all that stuff, like it would be there. This wasn't. It just was absent. They're saying, hey, she has holes in her heart, but we think that they're small enough they'll close on her own. And they were like, yeah, all of this, there's a lot of stuff that they were saying that they're like, yeah, it's looking pretty good. And I just sat there and I was like, yep, makes sense. But yeah, for that 12 hours, they were in and out doing tests, and it was over 48 hours after she was born, I finally got to hold her. She was so tiny and hooked up to so many machines, and she had breathing tubes and feeding tube down her throat, a drainage tube. She had all of these different things. I'm like, I don't want to break something. I'm like, I want to hold her, but I don't know. I want to set off all these alarms, and I don't know if I'm allowed.
They discharged me the next morning, and my parents brought me over to Children's so that I could, be with them. But for her, honestly, they originally said 3 to 4 weeks potentially for her in the NICU. She got out right at 2 weeks. So it just felt like progress, like every day. She was maybe on supplemental oxygen. She was on like the lowest of the low. She was on an eighth, which they say is like a whiff of O2 going through her nose.
So most of it was just getting her weight
For
up.
like a day and a half. And then really it was mostly, again, just her gaining weight, regulating temperature. She mainly had to be in the box. We could hold her, working through feeding and stuff like that. But that's keeping her temperature up was like where she would burn most of her calories. So she did have to stay in the incubator for a lot of it.
I want to ask you guys a question because, when Monroe was born, she had everything that some of the doctors said she may not have. Some organs, some things that were needed. She may be stillborn, and she has something that if she lives, it's not going to be long. In those scenarios, unfortunately, and so now I'm thinking, now we speed up, and she has all those things, right? In those scenarios, early on, I know, like in trisomy 18, like 95% of babies are aborted. When you guys were asked that, and thankfully the doctors were, asked once but didn't ask again, that was never an option for you guys. It was never a question. Why was that?
For our other two, they would ask if we wanted genetic testing, and it was like, well, it doesn't really matter. But either way, even if you come back and say, we're going to love our kid either way, whatever they're born with, whatever they look like, if they're only meant to be on Earth for, you don't wish that on anyone, but it's real scenarios for a lot of people. It thankfully, obviously, was not our scenario, but just, it was never going to change our plan of action.
Yeah, I think part of it too is we appreciated the facts because the doctors were giving us everything that they could to cover all bases, but we didn't believe it. So we believed she'd be whole and she would live a happy life. And it wasn't our decision on if our daughter would have a quality of life or should deserve life. That was God's decision. That wasn't for us to make. And we believed that she was going to be fine. We believed she was going to be, happy and healthy and all of that. And I even remember the day we pulled in to the hospital when she was supposed to be induced. I put my hand on Kate's stomach and I was like, God, thank you for what you're about to do in Monroe's life. Thank you for having her born 100% healed, happy, healthy, and whole. And we'll use her story to glorify you. And that was just our mentality through the whole thing,
Mm-hmm.
was that it was just, he's got it.
Mm-hmm.
And
I think that's so important. And again, life to us is not a political issue, and I hate it. That just made a political issue. It's God is in charge from the moment of conception until he takes us home. And so I just, I'm just so thankful that you guys had, from your parents, from your faith journey, you had that conviction that this is up to God. If she lives a short time, that's God's plan. If she lives a long time, we're praying for a long time. That's God's plan. And I think it's so important because, we talk about, we believe in life from conception, and then you go through it. That's when the rubber meets the road. It's not, you're just not talking anymore. This is the real deal. So I'm just so thankful for you guys that you would say right off the bat, man, no, that's not our choice. That's not our choice because it's not our choice. It's God's.
We also fully believe, too, that the doctors that were put in our path who were to care for us prenatally and, post-birth, that they were specifically supposed to care for our daughter. And they were the best ones to care for her, that God put them in our path. And I know he can share more because there was nurses that specifically would share with him or actually had reached out later on like Facebook and stuff, just sharing that when they would come into, whether we were in the NICU or the times that she was in the PICU for pneumonia or just any reason that she was in the hospital for prolonged stays, there were nurses that would come in and say, we just feel such peace coming into your room. I mean, initially in the NICU, we would share with people about, because all the nurses were like, did you know about this the whole time? So we did share and they were like, oh my gosh, you guys just seem so good with this scenario. And we met a lot of families that their kids had been there for months and, not in the best shape. And it just felt like for us, it was just day after day. Oh, they took this away. Right. Oh, she's gained some weight, and it just felt like progress every day. But you, I think, had more people tell you when you were there.
Yeah, because we talked about the playlist. We had the playlist playing in our hospital room 24/7. So all of our handpicked worship songs, healing, just playing over Monroe while she was in the hospital bed. And we had nurses multiple times that I said that this probably shouldn't be an award, but we probably were on every floor of Children's Hospital with her. So we kind of crossed off that bingo card. And we would have nurses that would find out where we were and come visit. And
they weren't on her room.
Yeah, that's cool.
And I remember one specifically, she came in and it was one of the times where I was in the hospital with her and Kate was at home with the other kids. And I had the music playing and all of that stuff. And she came in here and she was like, I got to tell you, I don't know what it is, but every time I come into this room, I just feel peace. And she was like, that music it's so beautiful. I could see her tearing up. And it was cool because I got to share my testimony with her. And for most people that know me, that's not in my realm of comfortability. It's not in my wheelhouse. It's not it's probably one of the first times that I shared my full testimony to her. And she came back. I mean, she was our nurse, but she came back multiple times and she just came in to hang out. She's like, I just wanted to come in and get some peace.
That's cool. When couples go through situations like you guys have gone through, trips to, the doctor's appointment, 60, I think you counted 60 2 or 3 times a week. You got your other kids, you've got schedules where you need to get them taken care of, and your parents were great in doing that. You got a job, right? That you're going with that as well. And then Monroe's born and she's in NICU and PICU and all the floors of the hospital, right? Many times marriages really struggle during that time. How did you guys make sure? And we all go through challenges differently. Exhaustion sets in. I mean, just all the layers of relationship. Talk a little bit about that and how you managed to grow, or maybe there were times when it was really, really hard as you worked through your relationship there.
I mean, there were definitely times where it was hard. I would say most of it was because we were apart. Because we were going in different directions. We'd see each other, in the lobby of the hospital, kiss each other.
Pass the keys.
She would hop in the car to go home. I would go through security, go up to the room.
When you stay in the hospital, you don't know what time it is. I mean, you just feel like the day takes forever. The nights are long because they're just always coming in and waking your kid up. Yeah. You're not sleeping.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we would do shifts of like 2 to 3 days at a time and then switch. And 2 to 3 days at a time and switch. And
so you guys you're just passing each other.
Yeah. Passing each other. And so I think part of it was we had our eye on the mission because, even post-birth, I mean, she's had 5 major medical procedures and she's going to have another heart procedure. And so it's just something for me, at least through all of that, I just took a step back and I looked what she was doing. And I'm like, man, she's my hero. All the stuff that she went through, all the stuff that she managed, going in through, the only extra weight that I carried was because I ate too much during the pregnancy, to fill the cravings, which she didn't have any. I just did. But I watched it. I watched her body change. I watched, everything that they were telling her, how strong she was. And I don't know, for me, it just felt like it brought us closer because we were battling together. But I also got to see how strong she was. And just really, really, I'm just like, man, I got to step up too. I can't let her put me to shame.
It's amazing, isn't it, when we go through a challenging time, and Kaitlyn, I want you to answer that question too. When you go through a challenging time, you see a different side of your spouse that you've never seen before. Oh. And we don't wish to go through those times, but when we do, God never wastes our time. Whatever he's doing in our lives today, he's preparing us for tomorrow. But it's so cool to see. It's so enriching for us to see, man, I didn't see that. I knew she was strong, but I didn't see that strength.
Oh yeah. I would not want to have gone through that with anyone else.
Yeah. I also think too, what even smacked us around a little bit, because we were in such a battle, but like I said, I was at peace. But we were still in a battle. So it seems weird, but we were still fighting daily during like the pregnancy. Then she's born, making progress to the NICU. She comes home. And it's like we just have this normal baby. She's not attached to anything. Like, just like when you take your other kids home, you're like, oh, they just gave us a kid. Like, oh, we're supposed to take care of them. So we take her home and everything's great. And I think we almost got a little, I don't even think we realized we did it. Or I'll speak for myself. I don't think I realized I did it. I got a little complacent. Like the battle was done. It was over. She's fine. She's here. None of these giant looming things are over our heads anymore. And they said she's great. And then at 3 months old, I take her to the pediatrician. I end up taking her to the ER. They send us home. I took her back to the ER the same day, that night. She was admitted. She was there for 17 days. And that's when she had pneumonia. And that's when she was put on supplemental oxygen. And I guess when we were discharged, it was like, the belief was because she was back on the 8th, which is what she had been on the NICU for a day and a half. It's like, oh, well, we could do this for a week and, she'll be great and fine. And then it was just like the weeks just kept stacking. And then going back to what you said before, all people would say to us is, when do they think that she'll be off the oxygen? I mean, that was the conversation. And that's the only thing people wanted to even say. So that was the only thing we could think about. And then I'll speak for myself again, because he could go to work at that time. And I am a stay-at-home mom, so I am home with the kids. I felt like my world got about this big. I mean, it just felt like it shrunk. I felt like I couldn't take her anywhere. I couldn't expose her to people. We couldn't do play dates with other friends that maybe we could have before. Figuring out just logistically how to do her tanks. And I've never had to do tanks before. And, the concentrator at home and hooking her up to the pulse ox. I mean, that thing alone will give you PTSD. The beeping alone will give you PTSD.
You think your phone alarm's bad? Oh my goodness.
And then it felt like everything sort of just went downhill. And I think I was keeping things in. I think it was affecting our communication. I know he was going positive, a little bit on the negative side. For me, I felt like I just was keeping everything in and I wasn't sharing anything, and even just kind of the mundane little things that were just adding up over it. Like small things I wasn't problem solving, just the tape on her face to keep it on her. I think back now, because she's mobile and she walks and she's starting to run and do little hops and all that stuff. She's made it through all these developmental phases, growing up with tubing on her face and attached to essentially a leash her whole life. I think back and I thought that was so hard when she came home, and I look at her, I'm like, oh my gosh, she was a potato. She seriously couldn't just lay her down and walk away. You could just leave her there and there was no big deal, and she couldn't roll in her bed, and, just all these things. And it's funny what you grow through, and now you can look back and say, it was hard, but it probably wasn't as hard as I was making it out to be. But something we had to kind of come to terms with, just for me specifically, because I couldn't figure out, and I was going through postpartum and all changes, and oh my gosh, our life is just so different now. We can't just pick up and go. I had to tell him, I said, I think I just need to go talk to someone. I signed up for therapy because that was something that I needed, and it was something that I couldn't even communicate with him, because when I did, honestly, it didn't, even when I would verbally say it, it didn't make sense. And he's a fixer. I think most guys just kind of want to fix a situation. I said, you don't even know what to fix, because I don't even think that I'm telling you, I don't even know what's wrong. And when I started going to therapy, and most of it was just kind of getting things out. It wasn't so much like I needed fixes here and there. I think it was just, I was just bottling up too much, just was overloading. And I started to feel so much better. So I honestly am a very big advocate for, if you need to go talk to someone, like go find someone that can help you. I just recently found a new therapist, a Christian counselor. Just started with her. I had my second session with her today. I'm very excited to start with her. She seems to have a lot of ideas and things that, I personally have been able to reflect on and figure out things that I want to work on, and marriage, kids, life, me almost finding my own purpose outside of kids and Monroe and those kinds of things. So I will be a big advocate for finding someone to talk to if you need to. Yeah. And him supporting that decision to say, okay, maybe I don't love the feeling that you need to go talk to someone, but if that's something you need, then I will fully support it. And
I want you to say that again, because there are a lot of people, and you guys have mentioned the spiritual battle, and it is a spirit. We are always in a spiritual battle, right? And Kaitlyn, I love what you said. When you get complacent, is when it gets dangerous.
Yeah. What I was going to say too is that I chalked it up to is, even though we were in a battle that we knew we were going to win, we were still in the battle. And after you battle for so long, you're still tired. And that's when the enemy likes to attack, is when your defenses are low, when you're tired, and you're more of an easy target.
I've often said and thought and experienced, when you go through a spiritual battle and you feel like there's victory there, you've won. That's the most dangerous time for me personally, because it's like I am tired and I am exhausted, and God is good and I won, and it's like you let down, and then that's when the enemy, because he's never letting up, he's never going to let up. A lot of people, again, going through all kinds of different things in their life. And on this podcast, we've had a Christian therapist who will address things like disappointment and discouragement and depression and those things. A lot of Christians will say, well, I'm in the spiritual battle. I got some friends I can talk to. I just don't need the help. And if I get the help, that's like me kind of giving in. It's not the case. Satan wants us to think that. But I want you to say again what you said, because there's some out there needing to hear, okay, I need to get to a Christian therapist. I need someone who's not only going to share the things that I'm going to hear, what I'm feeling, but also be able to tie that back into the biblical framework. So if you would, emphasize that again.
I got to the point where I didn't even know what was going on in my head. I knew there were things that were completely frustrating me, and I knew it just wasn't something. And we have different personalities. We have different ways of trying to solve things and figure out how to get through things, and they were not aligning. But for me, anytime we would actually have a serious conversation, I felt like it was just never coming out right. And I finally said, I think I need to go see someone that's just completely just not in this scenario, doesn't know me. I should have found a Christian counselor in the first place. I just kind of found someone. Now I do know better. Not that she was bad or anything. And I think even just reflecting on last year, honestly, I just think I just needed to get things out. I don't know that I was necessarily, I don't even think, had I found someone that was looking to give me tools and techniques and all that stuff, I don't even know if I could have handled it at that time. I think I just need to get it out. I think now I'm at the place where now I've really evaluated what I need personally. It is a Christian counselor. I need someone that is very strong, background with the Bible and being able to find tools that I can use to be able to live my life according to Jesus, according to the way of the Bible, so that I can get myself in a place where I'm not being a hypocrite when I'm teaching or raising our kids to be adults. And our daughter is now 7. She's at the age where she kind of hit that next level of kid, but she recognizes things. She can see things. She can feel things. Our kids love Jesus. At this point in time in their lives, I don't want that to change, but I don't want to see them see me as disingenuous when I talk about this stuff. And so I also don't want them viewing me as, just a mom, someone that just only does their bidding or, in the house. That they see, I don't miss anything in the corporate world. I used to work up until I didn't go back from maternity leave with Mason. But I don't want my kids seeing me as someone that, doesn't love Jesus, and I don't emulate that in my life. And so I do need someone that can help me with that, keep me accountable for this period in my life where I can pick up those habits. But I definitely couldn't. I don't think I could have taken that on last year.
Well, again, commend you for doing that. And we encourage anyone going through a challenging time. And I think I've heard this a couple times when we've had these conversations with people, Kaitlyn, where, what you said, I got to the point where I couldn't kind of verbalize what I was feeling and what I was going through. And I think that's a flag to say, okay, now I need to get some help. It's important.
But I was giving off mad to the family. Maybe not someone that wasn't living in our house, but he knew it. I mean, he could feel it. Our kids maybe couldn't feel it as much as he could, but they could probably feel it. And I knew that was going to be toxic, and it already kind of was toxic. And if I wouldn't have recognized that and figured out that I needed to, it was eating me from the inside out.
So you guys, you're on a spiritual journey. You growing in your walk with Christ. You found a great church in the North Hills, and thankfully, we're thankful that you came here. You have some great friends, great mentors, and you're like a small group. Go back 2 years. In these past 2 years, in the Monroe experience, what have you learned about God?
He's literally capable of anything.
Hmm.
And I think, too, maybe where we were at in our lives, we were sort of in like a complacent, like we were going to church, but I think we just weren't like really living it. I think maybe we thought we had lived through some challenges, and sure, there's challenges, but they just were not this. And I think he taught us that, one, we're stronger because of him, and that he literally is capable of anything. Like, she is a walking, not so much talking yet, but like loud still. She's vocal, not so much verbal. But she is a walking vocal miracle. I mean, anyone that meets her, they're just like, she's just so sweet. God gave her the personality of someone that needed to go through something like that. We used to say, and it's so sad. I always say it's so sad to say, but she was just this perfect little patient, just this little baby laying in the bed. And, every time we got, had to go in there, I mean, she got so observant. I mean, people would walk in the room and she just would follow them with her eyes, and you could see her eyelashes from just the other side of the room. But yeah, honestly, God is just capable of anything. I think I thought that before, but I didn't really know it.
Yeah. Knew it here, but not here.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And I mentioned growing up Catholic, and I went to Catholic school. I was an altar boy, youth group, all of that stuff. And I think one of the big things that I've learned over the past few years is, I grew up with all the stories, but not necessarily the application. And it wasn't, there's a part that's a responsibility of the person to dig in and learn that. And through this whole journey, just like Kate said, I realized that God is good, but I realized all of the promises that he laid out for us and how to start utilizing it. Because this was really the first major battle that I would say that I had to fight like this. I've had a lot of things happen in my life, but I wasn't equipped. I didn't have the sword. I didn't have the shield. I didn't have the breastplate. I didn't have the armor. And this was the first time that I was like, okay, God, I'm ready. Let's go to battle together, and just place it all on him. And just how much peace that you can have in the middle of chaos. When you actually do that, when you actually submit and you say, all right, I know you can do it. I have full faith in it. You protect it. You guard your heart, and you just put your full faith in him and watch what he can do.
Mm-hmm. Paul says in Philippians, be anxious about nothing, but in all things through prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be known to God. And in the peace of God, which passes understanding. So you can read that verse, and it's true. It's true when you read it, but then you experience it, and there's nothing like that. God's peace in the midst of devastating situations. So as we wrap up, a couple things. There are some listening, and they're going through some really, really hard times, and we're so thankful, for Monroe, and we know that other kids may not make it, and they go through, really setbacks, and it's just a roller coaster ride. You guys have been through that, and so thankful for God's work in Monroe's life. Give some spiritual counsel to those listening who are kind of sitting where you guys have sat, and encourage them, knowing that God is always good and everything he does is right. Just speak into their lives a little bit as we wrap up.
I think that one of the big hang-ups, and you've probably heard it a million times, that I had prior to learning our promises and what God can do, is that I did not realize that everything bad comes from the enemy. And so I was in the camp of, I'm on the right path. Why is God doing this to me? Almost like Job, and realizing that it is a battle. And so my encouragement is, one, if you don't feel equipped, there's someone else that can give you armor. There's great resources through the church. There's plenty of people that know those promises that can put that armor on for you. And I would say just suit up, go into battle, and submit to God. That was one of the hardest things for me. You know, a few years back, I lost my mom pretty suddenly, and I didn't know a lot of these things at that time. And so I didn't know how to react to something like that. I didn't know what it meant to fully submit it and give it to God. Now I do. And the amount of peace that comes with it, knowing that everything that happens is for a purpose, that God is using it for good. You know, we're able to, you know, come here and share this story and hope that it reaches one person. It helps one person. But there's no testimony without a test. But everything that's a struggle, God knows that we can handle.
Yeah.
If we just give it to him.
He's going to give us everything we need to do everything he calls us to do.
Yep.
Kaitlyn, how about you?
I think it's about, so even if you're in a place in your faith journey, spiritual journey, and you don't know where to start, there's just, I mean, even just on your phone, which most people are on, you do have access to either Bible apps or, I mean, even I personally, just to find different ways of being able to just pull something up quickly, I went into Pinterest and I made a board of just all protective, healing verses that I could find, just so that I could, you know, like some people might write them on note cards and just hang them up everywhere or whatever. That was just something that I did. Just something that I, you know, if I was sitting at an appointment, if I needed just something quick, even just to be able to start to pray on, I could just pull something up through Pinterest, specifically, like just finding healing songs. I mean, we just have access to so many things. So even if you're just not active necessarily in the Bible, I mean, you can Google, like, you know, a lot of things. It's very important to find people that you can walk through a scenario with, even if they haven't walked through that situation with you. But to find someone, and I say we've known Chris and Diane and some of the other, you know, spiritual mentors in our lives for 12, 13 years. And I said, if this honestly was the only reason we were supposed to have met them, was to go through this challenge and get through it in a way that we lived out God's word and his promises, that, I mean, 100% worth it. I mean, you say people are only in your life for a season, a reason,
or a lifetime.
And it's just amazing that at that time we didn't know that how we were going to need them. So just to be able to draw from maybe people in your life, or you may have to seek out someone for that in your life.
Well, it's a great reminder that, you know, we should never, the Christian life was never meant to be lived alone. And you need to seek out the people who can walk, the right people who can walk with you. And you guys found those two. And I think the other thing, Kaitlyn, you said is, man, you know, with our phones, these are crazy tools, right? But the positive is that you can pull up. The positive of it is you can pull up scripture after scripture after scripture and really feed your soul on God's word. And that's a great reminder that we really need to be feeding our soul, like David says so often in the Old Testament, that, you know, that we need to, it's like sweeter than honey, and we take it in, and it just nourishes us in ways nothing else can do. Well, I so appreciate you guys joining us and telling your story. We're excited to continue to hear Monroe's story. So we may have to come back in a little bit and keep up with what she's doing. I would ask one of you to pray for us, if you would. You guys are you're in the battle, because you never get out of the battle, but you've been through some really hard times. And pray for those people going through. Pray for those people today in the hospital. Passing the keys right to the car to their spouse, and just praying that, you know, they're going to be out at the end of the week, but then another week comes. Pray for them and just ask God to bless them from two individuals who have walked that walk.
Lord God, thank you for this day. Thank you for the fellowship and the opportunity for us to share your glory and all of the amazing things that you have done. I pray for anyone going through a similar situation, that we have a child, a family member, a friend that may be sick, that may be in the hospital, that may have gotten a poor prognosis, that they find comfort, that they find strength in you, that they're able to surrender their situation up to you and know that your will be done, that they will have healing, and that even through all of the beeps of the machines, the darkness, the quiet, the deafening silence of the hospital room, that you're there through all of the chaos, and that your will be done, and you are glory, you are good always, and your will come to fruition in their lives. We pray this all through your glory. In your name we pray.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Well, I want to thank Kaitlyn and Matt for trusting us and trusting our listeners with such a powerful story. Their honesty and their faith and their courage are a reminder that even in the hardest valleys, God's always near, isn't he? Continue to pray for Kaitlyn and Matt and Monroe. Here's an email I received just a few weeks ago. Matt writes this. They say there is no testimony without a test. Well, December was another testimony month for Monroe, as we ended up in Children's Hospital with her 2 separate times in a 30-day period, with one of those visits being in the ICU. But I want to share with you what happened during her second visit. And Matt describes a great story of God intervening again on Monroe's behalf. And then he closes the email with this. I say all this to once again reaffirm how amazing God is. He is the God of miracles. Also, continue to pray for Monroe as she has some upcoming procedures. If today's episode stirred something in you, whether grief or hope or renewed trust in God, you're not alone. Faith isn't about having it all together. It's about staying grounded when everything around us is shaking. If this episode encouraged you, please share it with someone who might need it. And be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We would love for you to get these podcasts given to you, pushed to you on a regular basis. Also, leave a comment. It helps these stories reach people who need them. I want to thank our Living Grounded team. Jen Booth is our executive director. Ryan Jorgen produces each podcast. Mark James delivers each podcast to various platforms. And Laura Crane handles our social media and lets you know what's up next. Hey, thanks for listening, and be sure to live grounded.